Heart FM to be part of this movement. It's 16 days, you and I, and together with Dr. Rafiq Lockhat, who joins us in studio. He is a clinical psychologist, a trauma expert who has dedicated his entire career in helping individuals and communities navigate the complexities of mental health and GBV, gender-based violence. Dr. Lockhat, who wants me to call him just Rafiq, will guide us today through the psychological dynamics of GBV, which I think is such an important part of understanding so many aspects of this pandemic, using real life scenarios to unpack complex issues through his expertise and experience. Of course, you and I will learn actionable ways to support survivors and to prevent violence in our communities. We're going to hold each other's hands as we go through this conversation. Dr. Rafiq Lockhat, how are you? Good morning.
Very well, thank you.
Welcome to the O Factor. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and as part of this I Am Collective initiative. There's so many different nuances and topics that we can really delve into when it relates to GBV, but I'd like to maybe get a background of your work and your experience within this environment. Is there a sense of an alarm bell that has gone off over the past couple of years, or has there just been a consistency in terms of the patients that you're seeing over the last couple of years, in terms of the prevalence of a GBV and what it presents as to you?
Sure. So I think firstly, this is an inspired idea. So shows like this really help quite a lot to demystify what GBV is. I think GBV has always been around.
Yeah.
But what's now is that it's exposed. So people are more comfortable coming forward because of shows like this in TV shows, and soapies particularly do a really good job because millions of people watch soapies. The average public doesn't read an academic article.
Sure.
But they watch soapies, and then if soapies show what's going on, people recognize that and they say, oh, that's me also. So education, key. So in my work, I've been in practice now for 33 years.
Sure.
And it's shocking when I say it to myself.
You look good.
That's true. And so, over the years, you see the whole range of stuff. And as you get wiser, as your knowledge improves, you understand the many different nuances. And you start to understand the myths that maybe even I grew up with.
Sure.
When there was no social media, any of that kind of stuff, computer. So you understand about all the myths that really, I suppose, help, inverted commas, to keep GBV locked into place. And there's many nuances. There's societal, there's government policy, there's how the police handle it when you go to report. So it's a huge topic. We could actually talk about this every day for a month.
Yeah.
So
we're going to be very, very direct and distinctive about discussing this for 16 days.
Sure.
You mentioned that there are many myths.
Yeah.
Rafiq, can you break down some of those myths?
Sure. So there's a lot. We'll cover a few. So the first one is that it only happens to unintelligent women.
Sure.
Right? That bright women are somehow excluded from it. That's not true.
Yeah.
In my practice and my colleagues' practices, and if you look at literature, it's not true. Every woman, and look, we're using women generalizing in a generalized way, but we always have to say that there is a percentage of men that are also victims of GBV.
Sure.
But for our purposes here, I think today, the vast majority are women. So the first thing is that it's got nothing to do with your intelligence. Second myth, only poor women get abused.
Yeah.
Right? That's completely not true. And we'll discuss it at some point. Third myth, I think common one, is that, well, it can't be that bad if she hasn't left.
Sure.
Common one.
Yeah.
The other one is that, well, she's there, she must like it. And nothing could be
further from
more
the truth.
mad than a comment like that. So these are just some of the oh yes, sorry. Only weak women get abused. Strong women don't. I'll never forget 1988. I was working at Lentegeur Hospital that just opened, and we ran a special ward for that. And I just arrived. I just finished my internship in Pietermaritzburg. I arrived, and the people were doing fantastic work there, amazing work. And so women will often come in for like the 3 to 6 week program.
Sure.
We were all young and enthusiastic, full team, psychologists, psychiatrists, social worker, OT, physio, wonderful work. And one particular woman stood out who would come in very abused. And we'd worked really hard on her for 6 weeks, teaching her all at that time what was considered assertiveness skills, standing up for yourself,
Sure.
how to understand things. And after 4 weeks, we discharged her feeling very proud of ourselves that we taught this woman assertive skills. And we got news about a week later that the person she was living with, the husband, when she practiced her assertive skills,
Yeah.
he just poured paraffin on her and set her alight.
Oh my God.
Okay, so that was a very important learning curve for us about context. Okay, the context is really important. It was underreported those days because we were using lots of foreign, American, British research. Okay, South Africa hadn't really, in '88, kind of figured out that we have our own wonderful research and our own particular challenges. So importing a program just from elsewhere, the UK, the US, Scandinavia, is a bad. So all of us were like in shock, and I think for a long time we felt really guilty because actually I think put her in that situation. We hadn't really considered what would happen if she did stand up to the person without the proper support.
Sure.
So we worked in this isolated environment in the clinic, worked really hard in the safety of the clinic, taught her all and she left totally different, not broken, strong, powerful. But the system was more powerful.
Yeah. Those are really very important points that you raise there. Like these are the myths that we perpetuate as society, even unknowingly. Like it might be like very social conversations that lead to that, and a sense of judgment that then also leads to shame and all of those things. The idea that a strong, educated, highly wealthy, powerful individual can come to you and be a victim of GBV.
Right.
And that in the very same voice, someone who's under economic strain and financial strain and is financially dependent to the abuser, herself of identities linked to the abuser, is also in the same situation.
Correct. Yeah. So it's really understanding that there are many factors that keep women locked in these relationships. And the judgment is real. I think that let's not sugarcoat it. The judgment is real from family, from friends who talk behind people's backs. And the thing is that the more powerful a woman is economically and educationally, the more shame she feels.
Sure. Less likely she is to speak up about it, hey?
Well, in therapy, they'll talk about it next to me, but that deep sense of shame, which is just and a not understanding of what's wrong with me. I have all these reasons. So obviously some women stay because of economic resources, and at some point we'll cover all the reasons people stay. But women like this are wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So they feel an even deeper sense of shame at their helplessness because they equate their intelligence with power in the relationship.
Sure.
Or they equate their financial bank balance with power in the relationship. It's not true. Okay, it's not true. No one's immune. You know, all of us got COVID.
Same thing.
Nobody was immune. It doesn't matter how rich or powerful you were, you got COVID.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that point today that nobody is immune. And let's stop with the judgments.
Yeah. All right, we are talking to Dr. Rafiq Lockhat as part of our 16 days of activism against GBV. We've partnered with the I Am Collective to create really meaningful conversation around safety, healing and change. And today we're really focusing on the scenario of the victim, understanding who she is, what her journey is, and of course looking at key learnings and how to empower the victim. I need you to visit www.theimcollective.co.za/HeartFM to be part of this movement. Also using our WhatsApp line 082-222-1049. If you see yourself being described in part of these conversations that we're having, and you have a story to share, and you have you need the I Am Collective in partnership with Dr. Lockhat to assist you, I need you to trust that will be a safe space. We'll be able to get that through, and perhaps we'll be able to decode your story, be able to have other people learn and maybe get out of the grips of GBV through your bravery. 082-222-1049. We are in this together. All right, let's get to some music. Going back to Dr. Lockhat in just a bit. I want to go back to the scenario that we were talking about before the break, where you said back in 1988, as experts and clinicians, you because you did not put the context of the victim into consideration, it became more dangerous for her.
Sure.
How important is it, if I'm listening and I'm a victim, that I go seek professional guidance as opposed to, I don't know, jumping out of a tough situation or reacting in a violent situation in a certain way? Like,
so look, 1988 was a long time ago. Knowledge wasn't easily available, and at the time, what's it, 40 years ago?
Sure. Yeah.
So in the safety of the clinic, we were able to do all kinds of interventions to build people up and send them out. What we hadn't considered enough was the context. So since that time, we know that women get killed.
Yeah.
Right? There's been numerous articles in the newspaper. South Africa has very unique challenge, but we also have opportunities then to have unique solutions. So the truth is that when a woman leaves a man, sometimes, they kill them.
Yeah.
Right. So one has to consider that context first. Is your intervention going to bring safety? So there's sometimes other pieces on the chessboard that have to be moved
First.
right, to allow this movement of things. So I think that's a very important point that I certainly learned as a very young clinical psychologist then, is how to consider context when working out your intervention. That will be legal, that will be safety, that will be financial. And the part that we focus on then is the psychological part of it. So you can't leave out the context that the woman lives in when you're planning an intervention.
Sure.
Her family setup, her financial setup, her safety setup. How psychopathic is the person that she's with? Is he likely to respond in this kind of violent way? And unfortunately, we read it in the papers.
Yeah.
So-and-so left, person went, found her, shot her. Found her, stabbed her, whatever, So that's the reality that one has to factor in. You can't have an intervention that is isolated from the reality of the woman's lived experience.
True. Very important. All right. One of the myths that we touched on, which probably segues to the trauma bonding, is it mustn't be that bad because she stays. Or maybe she likes it.
Yeah. Nothing could be further from the truth. Who likes getting abused? I don't know anyone that likes getting beaten up on a regular basis. If you find, look, it's different to very specific, what we call very specific S&M. That's different. But this in the context of a normal relationship, nobody likes being beaten up. You can't. If you find that person, send them to me. But I don't know anyone that exists. So let's go to trauma bonding. The 5 minutes we got. What is trauma bonding?
Yeah.
So trauma bonding is really a term that is used when an abused woman develops an unhealthy attachment with her abuser.
Okay.
And often they make excuses for the behavior. Right? It's my fault. I shouldn't have been like this. He'll change. Or they rationalize here, but he had a bad day. Boss was mean to him. Took it out in me. That's my job. I'm here to be supportive. Supportive, yes. Being punched in the face because your husband or your partner is angry at work. No, not cool. Right. And this is where then people become confused about why are you attached to this person?
This person who hurts you, this person who demeans you.
And fortunately, with all the new neuroscience that's come out now, we understand how brains work a little differently to what we did 30, even 20, even 10 years ago.
Okay.
So something Sigmund Freud came up with like 100 years ago. Obviously, he didn't have neuroscience, but he spoke about what's called the repetition compulsion, meaning, basically, but now neuroscience explains it better, is that we seek out relationships not because they're good or bad for us, but because they're familiar.
Wow. Sure. What do you call that term? Neuro?
But the
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. What is important now is that we understand what the brain
that means.
Does. So the brain basically has, if you think about it, brains are just data processing centers, right? They process data, and they give us an outcome: a thought, a feeling, a behavior. Right? And as a computer uses software, the software gives the instructions to the computer just follows the instructions.
Yeah.
I mean you've got like programs, just follow instructions. If you have WhatsApp, it's a program, right? It follows instructions. Nothing wrong with your phone. It just like follows instructions. Human brains also follow instructions.
Okay.
Where does the software come from, right, that the human brain uses? From things we've experienced growing up
All right.
and later on. So we're literally born with a blank hard drive. Right? Your computer comes with no operating system, right? No iOS, or no Windows, or no Office. You have to buy those. So imagine that. How do we as humans buy the program? From just what we're experiencing growing up. So if you grow up in an environment that is particularly violent or that you observe, all your brain does is that it just downloads what's happening.
Sure.
You don't have a choice in the matter. As a child, what choice do you have in what you experience? None. Okay, so the brain downloads what's happening while it's happening. It downloads what you're feeling while it's happening. It then turns that into a YouTube video for easy storage in your brain.
Yeah.
Then, unfortunately, we now know is that that video never gets old. So we used to think that new memory is stored here, old memory is stored somewhere far. It's not like that. And that then, and unfortunately, the worst experiences go to the VIP section of the brain.
Sure.
Like the VIP lounge, the worst memories go there. And then the brain uses that as instructions. So the brain will then seek out relationships that feel familiar. Not that they're good or bad, but just familiar. So Freud was right, but he didn't have the neuroscience to explain it.
Okay.
But we now know that, and unfortunately, it's not the logical part of the brain. So every woman knows logically, this is not good for me. Right? But that's from this part of the brain called your prefrontal cortex or your logic brain. Then there's another part of the brain called the reptilian brain, which is like the hard drive. And that's where the real power lies. So until in therapy that you help give women a software upgrade, they will continue to use the same program over and over again, which then, of course, just like enhances their helplessness and the confusion. Because logically, I know this. Emotionally, why am I still stuck?
Yeah.
Okay, but now we know why. So for listeners, I want them to understand that your logic can't help you. There's another part of your brain making those decisions for you. So it's like we're using a screen now, but there are no programs in your screen.
Yeah.
Where's the programs? Hard drive. If there's a virus in the hard drive, you'll see it on the screen, but you can't fix it on the screen. Okay, so hence, and that often really confuse women as I don't understand this. I know I should leave, but every time I want to, I just get this feeling
that I must
stay because he needs help. But it really is, what software did you download growing up that your brain keeps using? And so sometimes you're using Windows 2000 still.
Sure.
Okay, it's or the old version of WhatsApp. And you know, old version of WhatsApp, if you accidentally send the message to the wrong group, you couldn't delete it, right? You were like, finished. So you had to upgrade to the new. You don't need a new phone.
Just the version.
You need the new version of WhatsApp so you can do new functionality.
I love that.
So for what our listeners need to understand is that help is available. From the psychological aspect is how do we upgrade your brain to think, feel and behave differently. That's step one. Then step two is we then consider the context. What is the person's financial situation? What is their safety situation? What is the education system like? Okay, if they got 4 kids, where are they going to go? It's a real thing. I mean, relatives will say, yeah, come stay with us. But after 2 weeks,
it's too much.
You're there with your 3 children. And then, so these are things that women consider. But it does start with the upgrade of the software.
Okay. All right. Rafiq Lockhat, who's a clinical psychologist, with us for the Heart FM and I Am Collective, 16 days of activism against GBV. Thank you so much. Today we were really focusing on the psychology of the victim and unpacking myths and dealing with trauma bonding. If you missed this, you can catch it on the imcollective.co.za/Heart FM. We also want to be part of your journey over these next 16 days, so keep sharing on 082 222 1049. Let's get